So, what did you do today?
Shut the fuck, I've been here.
I know, I'm kidding. I'm joking.
This is 90 seconds of gold.
It's golden. We're gonna use every smidge of it. Alright, well, so, Paris. Paris. Damn it. You know,
How do you want to start? Do you want to
You just gotta jump right in there,
be
don't
like
you?
where we left last time, or just so this episode is? So this is episode number...
Okay, welcome to episode 2 of BeansTalk podcast.
This is great.
It's gonna be gold. You have no idea.
Hey guys, welcome to the BeansTalk podcast, where we talk about everything travel.
Sharing first-hand travel advice and getting to the bottom of real-life experiences in the hopes to inspire you to get out there yourself. I guess where we left off was we had just landed in Paris after...
Our grueling plane flight over.
Yeah. And super exhausted. We had made our way to Notre Dame, and I remember there was a park right in front of Notre Dame, right where that Locks Bridge was.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went over and saw the Locks Bridge, which was really cool, because it's just something that you've never seen, like thousands upon thousands of locks all attached to a bridge. That we later find out had been taken down like a couple weeks after we left, which was pretty just crazy to hear about, that we were able to see it while it was still there. That
they basically took it down because of locks overcrowding the bridge, and they would eventually break, or they would fall into the Seine or the river.
Yeah, the river there.
And it was just becoming like a trash.
Yeah, it was trashing the river, and they would be all rusty, and they would just, line the bottom of the river and create whatever water pollution that,
So they basically removed all the locks and replaced it with this like fiberglass or glass or some sort of textured wall with just almost cartoony looking locks.
Really?
That just walled it instead.
That's weird.
I remember seeing the image and I was like, I don't know.
We might have to go back and
I get it why they took it down.
Totally. Mm-hmm. But it was nice to be able to see it while it was still there.
Yeah.
So
at least it's our first experience with,
yeah, for sure.
Like a place that's just ridiculously covered with locks.
Yeah. But yeah, so I remember sitting in that park, and we had put our packs down because they were fucking heavy at that point, just walking around a little bit and just how tired we were. But I remember putting the pack down, and I could have slept there on that park bench for hours, I'm sure. So we just wanted to go find our hostel that we had booked ahead of time. It was called the Trendy Hostel. That was our first hostel experience, which was pretty good. I guess they were really new. It
was what, like 30-minute train ride out of the city center?
Yeah, so.
Roughly?
Mm-hmm.
So it was away from, it's still, Paris is just a sprawling metropolis.
It's huge.
To where it wasn't like we were out in the country, but we were definitely out of the central.
Yeah, it was
Paris.
A little ways out, but it was cool just talking to the person behind the desk at the hostel and kind of telling him that we're, day one in this over a year trip, and he was super excited for us and just super friendly and nice. And the hostel was clean and it was new, and
they were just kind of like young friends that started this up.
Yeah.
So they were also, I don't know, very welcoming and warm, and it was a good first experience.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that in that hostel, we were able to meet a couple gals from British Columbia who spoke French, and we ended up hanging out with them later on that night because we had ran into them on the train by chance. And we were talking with them and kind of just hanging out and having a couple beers, and then this...
At the hostel.
Yeah, at the hostel, just right out in front. We actually were hanging with the guys who owned the hostel, too, for a while, who one of them took us to go get beer later when we ran out. But yeah, there was a guy who was just walking by, and they, were able to call him over because they spoke French.
Basically just calling him to come over and hang out with us.
Yeah, but yeah, we were able to talk to him for a couple hours and meet him and learn about his story. And he
was basically just on his way home from work.
Yeah.
He was just walking home.
Yeah. He liked us so much that he asked us if we would stay with him and his sister.
He asked us basically what our plans were for the next after this, or how long we were staying there, and we said we hadn't had any plans after the few nights we had booked at the Trinity Hostel.
Yeah, because we were looking into other hostels around, and it was just expensive, and there was limited options. So we took him up on it, and we went and stayed with him and his sister for a couple nights. His name was Maxence, and her name was Selene, and they were super friendly and nice.
It's just around the corner, too.
Yeah, and they took us to, like, an art show, which was pretty cool to see some... a different culture's art. And then after that, I think they took us to get pizza, and
he introduced us to Comté cheese.
Oh, that was good cheese.
Just like local.
Totally local. I've been able to find it maybe in like one or two other places, but around France, like not... Maybe in Germany, but not very many other places. I cannot find it here for sure.
But it was all over there just
it's
because
so good,
I think it's really good, and it's local, and it's like a local delicacy sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so he was a teacher, but also a DJ, which is pretty cool. We weren't able to go to one of his shows, which I would have probably liked to do, but who knows, maybe in the future. And then his sister, we ended up meeting later in Portugal and got to know her a little bit better,
like
which was cool.
A year later.
Yeah, like a year later.
Because she was studying in Portugal, in Lisbon.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so they were just super nice and hospitable, and, it was kind of like our first real connection, I think, that we had made on the trip. So I think that, after that, we just kind of roamed, we made some couch surfing connections too, because that was the only other real, viable option as far as us being on a budget. Right. So we looked up couchsurfing.com, which was really cool. It's a little scary at first, just because it's you reaching out, asking...
strangers.
Asking complete strangers just to let you into their homes and allow you to stay there for free, which is crazy.
It has this feeling of, I want to say like moochy, but it's can I stay at your place for free?
Yeah, I think
I don't know. It had this, it's just something I had to get over myself.
Yeah, for sure. I think both of us have issues with depending on others to do certain things, and that is definitely something that you will have to get over if you want to do just traveling on a budget, and especially if you want to look into couch surfing. Just put yourself out there, and literally, you can meet some of the nicest people on couch surfing, and we did, and in Paris, we met a man named Sam, his partner Laurence, which she was awesome and super friendly and nice. And then we also stayed with another girl, and they were around the same area, which was pretty helpful. But
so commuting from one to the other wasn't a huge ordeal.
Yeah, it was pretty easy.
As we're still getting used to lugging around these heavy packs.
Yeah, but her name was Benedicte, and she had a really cool house with some pretty interesting roommates. Like, one gal was studying to become a mime. Another guy was just super into his gardening. He had a certain philosophy of gardening that was like all natural, and the way that you allow sunlight in and shade others. And then he had like created hills, because on certain sides of the hills they had better, I don't know, it was all just like, he was so into this philosophy of how he set up his garden in his backyard, which was fascinating, and it was beautiful. Had tons of great flowers, and just the method behind it was really fascinating.
And it was just cool staying with locals and seeing, it gives you a real sense of like culture when, you know, for them, at least that particular household with these like 5 different people.
Mm-hmm.
And their method of like eating dinner was like everyone ate at this huge table.
Yeah.
And so everyone just kind of hung out as a group.
Yeah.
Almost like a family, and they would just talk, and, you know, everyone worked on the dinner together.
Mm-hmm.
Afterwards, everyone cleaned up together. It was just very
communal style. Yeah, it was really cool. It
was awesome.
I think one of the roommates too was some sort of journalist, activist, and I want to say that he had done something at the time. We didn't catch much of it because basically they're all speaking in French, and we don't know French.
Their English wasn't super good. It was
Benedicte's was really good.
You know, hers was good, but some people, they have to really focus on every word and try to think of, you know, the translation.
Yeah, which I totally understand.
So it was way better than my French.
Yeah, totally. They knew some English, which we don't know any French, so or very, very little. So I totally understand, and there's no hard feelings at all when they would just resort back to French, and, you know, but it's something that you have to get used to, that not everyone's going to go out of their way to, you know, accommodate for you not knowing their language, which I completely understand. So, but yeah, he was, you know, he had just done something pretty big, and they were all talking about it. The buzz was real. It felt like there was some excitement in the air, which was pretty exciting just to be a part of it, even though we didn't entirely know what was going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just exciting, and just, it definitely felt like a different vibe as compared to, you know, what you would get just staying at a hostel in the city center and just hitting up the touristy destinations and all that. So it was a cool experience for sure. Certain things that stood out when we first got there, would you say were kind of just like walking the streets? Like, the cobblestone really stood out, because that's something that we don't have in the States.
Yeah, I had this like childhood dream of traveling and just associating cobblestone streets with Europe and just travel in general.
Totally.
So I think just one of those things personally for me was a very big excitement, was just seeing the cobblestone streets everywhere.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound like much, but it was just this childhood connection with that and association that made it that was super exciting for me. Because you don't see that here. But
no, not at all.
You see that in photos or, you know, videos and documentaries or whatever, and it's all over Europe, so it's very...
Yeah, I would say for me also the architecture was just very its
historic.
Own. Yeah, and I would say that one thing that I look at personally when I'm traveling to each different city are the rooftops. And so Paris's rooftops are very distinct and very unique. And I don't think that there's any other place in the world that I saw similar rooftops. So, but then also just like the cafes, the fresh fruit markets,
There's markets everywhere.
There's basically, and it does live up to some expectations. One being sitting on the corner or sitting at the corner cafe drinking a coffee or a little shot of espresso, having a cigarette. Like, that's a lot of people were doing that, which was kind of one of those ideas that I had in my mind of seeing. But yeah, as far as you have this in mind of it being this one way, and this, you kind of romanticize it in your brain, and any expectation that you have is going to be...
It's never met.
It's never met. So that was something that we definitely learned on our trip. And you have to keep kind of relearning it everywhere you go. But as soon as you expect something, it's going to be completely different.
It's never going to... Just no expectations ever.
And I think
it's going to be more enjoyable that way, because if your expectations aren't met, then you kind of get I don't know.
Yeah, you're almost let down in a way,
But if you just go with no expectations, and then there's more adventure in it,
totally.
Whatever comes at you, enjoy it for what it is.
Exactly. You're more in the present moment, and you appreciate things more, I think, when you don't expect them to be a certain way. But I think that a couple things that we saw that definitely swung us to the side of like, oh, that's not what I expected, were a couple train rides that we took. And one, we were sitting in a train, and I think we had seen a girl or heard her first because she was yelling at the top of her lungs, I think, and just belligerent. And she was outside going into the train in front of us. You could hear
the drunk in her voice.
Yeah, she was...
It's one of those very...
Haggard voice, and... Yeah, so she got onto she was out on the platform, and we're both kind of looking at each other going...
We're inside the train car.
Yeah, we're going...
It's just at a stop.
We're going, please don't come into this. Because you don't really want someone who's going to be yelling at the top of their lungs in your car. But she got into the one in front of us, and we're like, oh, thank God. But then she quickly left that one and then came into ours, and we're like, oh, shit. And, I just remember her being pretty haggard. She was stumbly, wasn't speaking... Well, she was speaking French, obviously, but whatever she was saying in French, I'm sure wasn't that coherent. And just... sad to say, but the smell I will never forget, because it was stinky cheese and wine. And so those two combos together, and if anything's going to throw you off wanting to have good cheese or wine, that would be it. So that was just one thing where I was like, holy shit. And it just makes you, that's big cities. That's just how big cities are. There are going to be people who, abuse drugs and alcohol and who are living out on the streets, and that's just kind of the way of life in bigger cities. That's what you're going to see. So you just kind of have to get used to it. But that was one thing that kind of snapped me out of this romanticized travel life, or, seeing Paris.
Yeah, because Paris is usually, you think of like beautiful and romantic, which it is.
It is in certain places.
But it felt different. And it was different. Again, what I expected was different. Whereas riding the trains a lot, and I remember people just seemed so down on the trains, just like jaded, and they just stare off. And I remember on a crowded car on the train, as we were holding the middle rail, and we're, elbowed shoulder to shoulder, and this lady just was staring off, and all of a sudden tears just started running down her face, just didn't change expressions, and I was just like, this is such a bummer. I thought this place was like romantic, and which again,
everybody has their bad days, but it's just, I think that when you're in big cities, and especially in Europe, nobody has their own car. I mean, some do, but a lot of people ride the train, so that's their form of transportation. So when you're in that car, that small space with everybody, it's just, you know, you're in everybody's business. So you can't really hide shit in trains.
I mean,
so, yeah.
Life is life. I mean, people still deal with, you know, working all the time and have, you know, it was just a weird, I don't know why I had this. Again, it's an expectation I had that everyone's happy here and everyone loves life. And it's Paris. It's a romantic capital of the world.
It's Europe. They're all happy.
It's like Disneyland where everyone's happy and having a great time. You know.
Yeah, I know, right?
I don't know why I had this.
Just because we're on this high of like, travel, yay, new place, experience, new. And then it's just like, oh.
Well, why are you sad? Why are you drunk as shit? Why are you such a bummer? Why, you know, it's just like, well, of course.
It's just naivety.
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 We know.
So, anyways, we were naive. And, yeah, but I guess... So that was the reality that we were kind of facing and dealing with. But also, we did want to go out and see those certain areas that were known to be, you know, landmarks that you can't miss. You know, there's the Eiffel Tower, the Arc de Triomphe, Père Lachaise was one. The Louvre.
Yeah. Just a lot of the things, I wouldn't say everything, like Père Lachaise is very popular, but it was so big. You know, like certain places like the Eiffel Tower is a total tourist trap.
Totally.
Whereas Père Lachaise, it's huge, to where there was people there, but it wasn't as tourist trappy.
Good. Yeah, no, I think for me personally, Père Lachaise was my favorite place that we went. And I'm not entirely sure how to come across saying that walking into a cemetery was my favorite place without sounding kind of creepy. But there was a certain piece about it. Like there was some sort of unspoken like serenity. I don't know. It was just...
I think cemeteries just kind of have that to a degree.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, it's the different gravestones and statues, and it is gigantic. You probably could go there 3 days or 4 days in a row and still not cover the whole thing. Like, it's huge. But yeah, as far as just the look and the feel of it was unmatched by
especially
any means.
When it's, I mean, Paris is such a sprawling city.
Yeah.
And everything's hustle bustle. It's a, you know,
totally.
Most or all big cities are. Everything's moving quick with lots of sounds, and then there it was just kind of like this peaceful.
Yeah.
You know, everything like quieted down.
The walls
you
are
could
really
hear the wind
high.
through the trees.
Yeah, but like I think the walls blocking it from the like road were pretty high too. I remember walking past them on the outside.
Probably for that reason.
Yeah, because it does feel like you're kind of in your own little area, which was pretty cool. But we saw like Jim Morrison's grave. I think Oscar Wilde's buried there, Chopin. Like, there's tons of different famous names that when you walk past, you're like, oh, crazy, you know? So it was pretty cool, just seeing that. And I guess Montmartre was...
It's free, too, isn't it?
Père Lachaise?
Or what did it cost money? I don't remember.
That's a good question. We might have to look back into that. I think if it was money, it was very little. But, yeah. I know that Montmartre was another one that we went to, because we were told if you want a good view of the city, go to Montmartre. And so,
they were right.
And they were totally right.
It was one of the best views
for sure
of Paris.
Yeah. Besides, like, on top of the Eiffel Tower, Montmartre is probably one of the prettiest views that I've seen of a city, like, anywhere. So you're you walk up kind of through, you take the train there, then you can walk up kind of these winding streets, tons of tourist little shops and knickknacks and all that stuff. We weren't really into it, so we just kind of passed that and went straight to the hill. But I think that right before we get to the stairs where you can walk up to the cathedral, not cathedral, it's a
church, right?
Yeah, I think it's a basilica at the very top. But we had gotten stopped by maybe three or four guys, and they were adamant about separating the two of us, which we were like, what is going on here? So the one guy says, let me make you a bracelet, and I'm going, okay.
All he asks is for you to put out your finger.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So he says,
just put out your finger. Just put out one finger.
Put out one finger. And I'm like, okay. Because I don't know any better. I'm very new to traveling and scams.
You knew it was a scam.
I didn't write it first. I had no idea. I was just like, what?
I was like, this guy wants something.
Yeah. Well, after he basically attached a string or a couple strings to my finger and then starts weaving a bracelet. And so he basically has me trapped.
Because your finger's now attached to a string that he's holding the other end to.
Basically.
Where he's making, essentially, the bracelet around your wrist.
Yeah.
And then, is obviously going to ask
try to force you to pay money.
Because now it's attached to you already.
Yeah. So you can't really run anywhere. It's like a brilliant, scam, I would say. But he's... talking to you where you come from and trying to be very cordial and nice and all that. And he's, and I'm not a mean person. I'm not going to just say, hey, fuck off. And and I can't go anywhere because I'm attached to a string. And so I'm talking to him and I'm like, okay. And then he gets done with the bracelet and he's obviously like, all right, he says $10. And I'm like, $10 for this? Or yeah, 10 euros. And I'm like,
did he ask for 10?
10 for me. I was like, no, I'm not giving you 10 for this that I didn't even ask for. I'm on a budget. And so I think that I was just like, no, I don't need it. And then, of course, obviously they're dropping the price because 10 is outrageous, unless someone's like, okay. But yeah, I think that after I was just like, no. And I think I had a 2 euro coin. So I was just like, here, take that, and that's it. And I think I had kept that bracelet, and I think I still have it, actually.
I did not keep the bracelet. I did not even get the bracelet tied.
No.
I think he came up to me, and I was like, I don't want this. I don't have any cash. I don't have cash. And you said, oh, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
And then he just made it up for me and then handed it to me. And I said, I told you I don't have any cash.
Yeah.
And then get this guilt trip of like, oh, no, you just have it then.
Just take it. Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I told you to begin with, I don't have cash. Take your bracelet. I don't want it.
Yeah.
And that was...
Well, it's just, they one, catch you off guard. And then 2, it's, you don't want to be rude to a stranger. And especially if they're being nice to you. But
it's all an act.
But it's all an act, and that's really how they get their money. That's the whole gist of it is just they're scamming you. So I think that was a definite wake up call for us right at the get go. Of it's a pretty easy thing to get wrapped up in if you don't put up that block and distance yourselves or stand up for yourself and just say no.
Because a lot of scams, for the most part, come with a smile because it makes it that much more awkward to get yourself out of.
Yep, exactly. Because you're
the one
that's
Whereas if they come up upset or mean, then it's easy to be like, well, no, fuck you too.
Yeah.
And it's, but if they come with a smile, it's just that underlying awkwardness of, oh, well, this person's being nice. I should be nice back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but you just have to stand firm and.
Yeah. I think that. So that whole thing kind of threw us for a loop, and we're like, oh, what, and then we see this really, really pretty church right at the top, and so we're starting to walk up the stairs, and I think it was right around sunset, which was pretty awesome to be able to witness the color, that the sun cast on that church was just unreal. But then, we had gone, I think, on a weekday. It was not a weekday, but a weekend. So it was either Friday, Saturday, or I don't think it was Sunday. So I would say it was one of the busier times. And literally the place was just riddled with people. And it was locals, I believe, that just enjoy, hanging out there and definitely drinking. There were people going around selling, cases of beer.
Heineken.
A lot of Heineken for whatever reason, but it was just riddled with trash too. There were garbages just overflowing left and right, and so even though you have this idea of like, oh, this is going to be great, you look to the right and there's just heaps of trash, and you're just going, oh, this is not what I
loud,
thought.
Drunk
and very
people,
loud and drunk.
A lot of trash. Not what we expected.
But then there were also pretty cool street performers as well. There was one guy who had a soccer ball, and he did things with that soccer ball that I can't even, I don't know how.
It's like climbing up a light pole.
What? It was crazy. Yeah, it was awesome though. I think that another favorite probably was the Louvre. And that was
my favorite.
I could have stayed. I really want to go back to Paris just so I can get like a week pass and keep going back to the Louvre. Because we spent a day there, most of the day.
We went with the pass where we were able to go in like a couple hours earlier.
Yeah. And you order it ahead of time online so that all you have to do is pick up the tickets there.
If you avoid that versus waiting in line to buy the ticket, you're wasting half of the day.
It's seriously going to take you hours. That pyramid, the glass pyramid that they have there, the line seriously like winds outside of that to wait to get in to buy those tickets, then to get in again, which is pretty crazy. But
even with buying the tickets online ahead of time, there was still a pretty decent line where it was at least 30, 45 minutes.
Yeah, to get the tickets inside.
Collect your tickets to get in then too, which there is also a line, or I want to say secret, but I think a lot of people know about it, but where you can go underneath the Louvre and get in that way.
Yeah.
Which is where we went.
Yeah, so it
which
definitely
the line was not nearly as long.
A tip, yeah. That goes a lot faster that way. So, but once
underneath.
Yeah, once inside, holy crap, there is so much to see. And I think at one point I got separated from you. I was like lost. I'm like, shit, I'm never going to be able to find him. And we, it's so easy to just like wind your way through. I think we had done at first, was it sculptures?
Yeah, we did the sculptures for the first, 4 hours. I don't know.
It's crazy. Sculptures, you could spend an entire day just at sculptures. It was awesome.
And then we wanted to work a way to see the Mona Lisa and the paintings, in which point I had no idea there was so much like painting art.
No,
canvas work.
Yeah, and it's literally every...
I was almost bummed we spent so much time on the sculptures where I would have rather I could have spent the whole day on just the paintings. Yeah,
because you're seeing Rembrandt's, Monet's, like these artists that you only have read about in textbooks, in school. You're seeing their work like this, and it's
not behind glass.
No,
the Mona Lisa is.
That's the one
which is also
that's a tourist trap. I remember.
It's behind glass. There's a rope. There's just a crowd of people.
There's a wooden banister that you can't pass. So it's literally
like guards there to make sure that everything stays, everyone stays where they should be.
Yeah, you can't look beyond this banister, and there were probably easily 60 people surrounding it.
Oh, more than that.
Yeah, or more.
There was like 100 people.
Yeah, it was crazy. So
it was like the front row of a concert.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
And everybody selfie, photo, selfie. So just like a sea of not flash photography. I don't think they allowed it, but photography and, people taking selfies. So it was just like, this isn't what I pictured.
Just walking up, we just almost didn't care about it because there was so much other amazing art there.
Seriously, yeah.
And why,
But, it's nice to be able to say you were there, you saw it, kind of. And then, but all the other art really is what you want to go for. And if you can give yourself multiple days to go back, I would highly recommend it, for sure. Yeah. Another one that actually kind of surprised me was the Arc de Triomphe, because that was, you've, seen it in movies or magazines or photos, and it really, it cannot capture the magnitude of it. And so you're walking down,
which is a really cool part of the city, too.
Yeah, you're walking down pretty busy streets, and you get to this huge roundabout, and you see, just lanes of traffic going around it, and you're going, how do we get over there?
Yeah, it's basically in the middle of a roundabout.
Yeah, you can't run through the street.
6 lanes of cars.
Oh, it's crazy. So
it's just...
Yeah, you're looking at it going, wow, that looks really big, but
you see a bunch of people over there, too, and you're like, there's no crosswalk to get over.
There are people walking on the top of it, and then there are people all around it, and you're going, yeah, because there's obviously no crosswalk. So we're going, how do you find the way to get underneath? And I guess that maybe we had asked somebody, or maybe we were looking on our Google Maps, and we had walked over to where it looked like a subway.
I think we just walked around in a circle just to try to figure out how, and then there was a train station right there, and we had walked down to that, and that's where they have a tunnel going from... basically goes under the roundabout.
Yeah, from that train station underneath the roundabout to where you pop up right at the Arc de Triomphe.
Right at the base, yeah.
And it's free to walk through that tunnel and get up to the other side, but to get on the top of it, it does cost money. So, which
I don't know why you'd want to get on the top anyway. You can't see it from the top.
It'd probably be a cool view of the city, though.
Possibly.
But yeah, I guess for what stood out to me was just the size of it. It is huge. And then the sculptures on each side, they were awesome. Just super, super good. The expressions on the faces and just...
all the detail.
Yeah, the detail. It was amazing. But yeah, we also did the Eiffel Tower, which was a must, as a tourist or foreigner. We had gotten there, and that's definitely another tourist trap, so beware of, anybody looking to scam you, sell you anything you don't want.
Selling junk that...
all those jewelries, these chains that they just jangle around, and they're like, do you want this? And I think they're just little metal statues of Eiffel Towers. And, but yeah, so I remember us getting there. There are a few different options that you can take to get to the top. We went for the least expensive.
There's a halfway point, and then there's the very top.
Yeah, so you can walk up to the halfway point. That costs you, I don't think, anything. But then once you get to...
I think it did.
Maybe it did, but it's not that
very
much.
Very minimal versus taking the elevator to the middle.
Yeah. And then taking, again, the middle to the top elevator, which you have to do that because you can't walk past the middle. There's no option
for stairs.
Yeah, there's no
stairs. So
if
you're walking for cheaper, you can only go as high as the middle.
Yeah. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't walk up to the top.
That's right, because we probably would have.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we made it basically to the top, which was pretty awesome. And I think that getting up there was, that was the way that allowed me to learn how gigantic Paris is. You could just see the city sprawling as far as your eyes could see. It is huge. So I think if we hadn't gone to the top of that, I probably wouldn't have had the idea of how big that city is. Because literally you're above it, looking at everything. and the view's pretty awesome. I mean, again, it's a tourist trap and very crowded, and if you can get past,
it's a must-do, though.
If you can get past the claustrophobic feeling and all that, then I would say definitely check it out. I guess right after the Arc de Triomphe, we went to the Champs-Élysées, because, you hear it in songs, you have just heard about it, and we were like, okay, what's this great walk along this romantic street? And we get on it, and it's basically like H&M, Gap, whatever other stores, this and that. So it's basically just shopping. And a big strip mall. Shopping. Yeah, and very expensive shopping. So that's not his and our bag. So we didn't really stay for long. We just kept walking. Yeah. Maybe from afar, if you're taking photos from the Arc de Triomphe, like through it onto the Champs-Élysées, that might look pretty. Or if maybe you're on top of the Arc de Triomphe and you're taking photos of it, it probably looks cool because it's very straight, very centered. So, but other than that, I don't see the appeal. I would say that, well, do we have another tip or trick or?
A lot of it was riding the trains.
Yeah, that's right.
Basically, aside from walking around everywhere, but you could spend, to get from A to B to see this and that, you're going to have to take transportation or you're going to walk all day and only get to see 2 things versus seeing 8 things in a day.
Seriously, yeah. It's way too big of a city.
You have to take the trains. But in order to do that, sometimes you have to switch trains, to catch the red line, which transfers to the blue line, which, in order to get to a certain destination. But it all adds up with 1 or 2 euros to just...
It can get really
all of a
expensive.
sudden it's like 10 euros that you spent just to get to one place.
Yeah.
Where we were like, this is adding up super fast. So we heard from someone about this 2-for-1 sort of unspoken rule where if you're together and one person buys a ticket, when you scan your ticket and then go through the rolly bar.
Yeah, either the rolly bar or they have the doors that open.
When your ticket gets scanned,
both go through.
Scan it and then you both go through.
Yeah, so you're only paying for one, which is nice because that did save us money for a lot of trains. But then we started seeing people just hop over it.
Or like the doors that open, they would just kind of push their way through.
No, not the doors.
I saw that.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit.
Some of the doors would be loose.
Those scared me.
Some of the doors would be loose, just closed, so you could squeeze in and just sneak around.
I will tell you this, though. If you have a big pack, it is difficult.
Yeah.
We did that a couple times, and I'm not very strong at the top. My legs are strong, but when I'm pushing, like I'm trying to haul myself up over those bars with probably 30 pounds on my back, it is tricky. And I think there were a couple of close calls.
Because the bars don't move unless you have a ticket.
No.
And if you're trying to hop the whole thing.
Yeah, so.
With a 40-pound pack.
Yeah. But, if you...
A little awkward.
Yeah, if you are willing to do it and maybe gutsy enough to try it out.
We weren't the only ones.
We were not the only ones, so there were a lot of people.
It was kind of a monkey see, monkey do situation.
Yeah.
We saw other people were like, well, you can do that?
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, we can save a ton of money by just not paying, period.
Yeah, for sure. So that was something that helped us out, save a little bit while being in Paris. And I think that, if you have the money to do it and you don't feel comfortable doing that, the trains are the way to go. I think taxis are only going to just rack up a bill. And then if you wanted to, possibly the on and off bus.
No, taxis, I would never cab in Paris.
Well, no, but I'm saying if you had the money and you don't feel comfortable, ride the trains and pay for it. But there is that hop-on, hop-off bus that is an option that I've heard is somewhat inexpensive. So if you wanted to do that, there are those big red buses that you can just jump on and off and get from here to there. So that's an option as well. I guess a little highlight for me was when we had gone out and gotten ourselves like fresh bread, local cheese, some cured meats, and like a nice bottle of wine for a decent price. Like it was pretty cheap considering, what we would pay for it here in the States, and the quality of food there is really good.
French picnic assortment.
Yeah.
Basically.
And we basically just walked to, or right out in front of the Eiffel Tower and just waited until they, at night they have the lights turn on, so it's like these twinkling lights that just light the whole thing up, and
every 10 minutes or something? 20 minutes?
It might be longer than that, but I'm not entirely sure.
Twice an hour or every 30 minutes?
Yeah, I think it might be every half hour.
But we basically watched the sunset, and then
had a nice bottle of wine and some good food, and it was just kind of like one of those moments that felt kind of surreal.
Very Parisian evening.
Yeah, it was good. I liked that for sure.
Yeah.
Another story that we didn't mention, but when we had stayed with Sam, the couch surfing host, he had taken us to, or wanted to take us to a bar where one of his friends was DJing at. And I think that before we went there and met some of his friends,
we had some spare time to kill, so...
Yeah, so we went to...
He was asking what we wanted to see, and we were expressing our appreciation and love for dive bars.
Yeah.
And just how we like the sort of raw and grittiness and...
Yeah. Just like the real nature.
The feel of just dive bars.
Mm-hmm.
So he brought us to... I don't even remember the name of it.
I don't even remember the name either. It was basically we were walking up a street, and I think he was like, oh yeah, this place would be good. And so we walked in there, and literally it felt like, this is going to be a weird description, but it felt like possibly a little shop in Diagon Alley, like Harry Potter style, where there were like stacks of old records, paintings stashed in corners, like posters that were torn, like rolled up and in the corner. So it just had this very feel of like messiness. I'm sure there were like a couple dogs walking around,
there were.
And like just knickknacks and shit like stuffed into every corner. And we're like, is this someone's like apartment, or are we in a bar? What's going on? It was really weird, but cool. Yeah.
Basically, yeah, it was, what we came to find out was it was a punk rock bar.
Yeah.
Where they would play a lot of local punk shows. And we ended up talking with this guy that had been going there for like 30 years or something.
Yeah.
Whose English was super good.
Oh,
who
amazing.
Attested to he learned it from watching American movies.
That's true.
But had one of probably the best English that we had, come into contact and conversed with.
Yeah, and I think that he
had to explain the whole, just, I guess, history with the bar and with the owners and...
Yeah.
And what it was, and I guess they were shutting down.
It was like one of their last days.
It was, like...
Maybe the last day.
It might have been the last day. And so there was a lot of people coming in that had been going there for forever.
Oh, yeah.
And had this strong, lengthy connection with this bar and the community that it had and all the times that they had brought together. So there was a lot of tears shed and emotions. And
totally.
People coming in and just getting smashed and... hugging each other and telling stories of times past and this show here and so it was kind of a special moment.
Oh, totally!
That we were even able to experience it.
I just got goosebumps thinking back on it.
And that this guy was willing, just super nice and willing to share this whole history of this bar with us, and that he kind of welcomed us in it as well, versus shying us away because it was this time with people that had been, the community that had been going to it, but, welcomed us to stay as well. And I think even bought us a drink. And
yeah, for sure. And I
remember...
Even as,
like, Americans was very welcoming. And
yeah, because I remember when we first got in there, it was, just kind of checking it out and being like, what is this place? And then the person behind the bar, I think the owner, he was a little bit... I wouldn't say rude or anything, but a little bit like, who are these people? At first. And then saw that kind of also was because, I mean, they're experiencing their last day and it's all the regulars and all, this vibe of like community. And here we are, these kind of strangers just coming in.
Strangers and foreigners.
And Americans, nonetheless. So I think that he was a little bit cold a little bit to us at first, but then I think once the other regular guy who came in and was talking to us, he was learning about our story, but then also telling us the history of the bar. He warmed up to us big time and was like just cracking jokes. He even gave me like a nickname, and then I think the guy
was it?
Saul. And I'm not entirely sure why he gave it to me, but I think it was how I speak. I think he like Saul, or he's like, I don't know, I can't remember exactly why it was, but
it could have been that we also came in with Sam, who was obviously a local too.
Yeah, which was nice, definitely that he was able to talk to him in French, but then I remember the owner behind the bar warming up to us.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just a really cool experience, one that I was not expecting at all.
It was another one of those random, spontaneous happenings that just was a highlight of a city or a place.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And I think that, it just added to the whole experience there in Paris, and was like a little glimpse into a world that we had no idea existed.
It was obviously, just local. There were no tourists other than us.
Mm-mm.
It was a special moment.
But yeah, I remember just the warmth of the people there that really stood out because they were so vulnerable. Like they really opened themselves up and like even got choked up in front of us and allowed themselves to like feel that, which was something that you don't see often, which I felt really blessed to be a part of.
And I think our acknowledgement of what that meant to them and, seeing that this is a special thing for all these people and how we were, open to that and accepting of that also kind of helped the embrace of us being present.
Yeah, for sure. So that was pretty awesome. But I would say that kind of sums up Paris, unless you feel like we needed to touch on something else.
I think that was basically it. We did want to see the catacombs.
Oh yeah, that was something
which you can, and there is a way to do it, but it's also a very touristy way to do it. We were more so wanting to try to get in touch with a local that might have known a secret way in, and
we were. I think we had asked like either Sam or Benedicte. We said,
I asked Maxence too.
Yeah, how do we get into the catacombs?
Do you know anyone that knows the secret way in? And they were even saying, oh, you really have to know someone. He didn't even know anyone.
Yeah.
And he, is a local.
Yeah.
He said you really have to try to seek someone out that would know about that. So we didn't end up doing that, but
maybe another time. Yeah.
One day.
Yeah. So. Anything else?
That sums up our 2 weeks in Paris, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
So.
But I think on the next episode, we will probably be talking about us going and traveling down to Bordeaux, which is just a city that was a little bit closer to getting us to Saint Jean.
So basically, we were slowly making our way south to Saint Jean, where it is near the border of Spain.
Yeah.
To start our 500-mile pilgrimage across Spain, known as the Camino de Santiago, or just simply the Way.
Yeah. We had a pretty weird encounter with a local at the train station in Bordeaux that we'll talk about on the next episode.
So that's all coming up.
Yeah. And the Camino was definitely a highlight of the entire trip. So that'll be definitely a cool
section.
I would say we're probably going to do multiple episodes about that because you can't cover it all in one.
And it took a total of 43 days, so it's took a while.
Yeah. So one of our favorites.
So that's coming up. So stay tuned.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, you guys.
If you liked what you heard, subscribe to our podcast.
If you feel inclined, leave us a comment or review. Tell someone you know who might enjoy to have a listen, and feel free to share on your choice of social media.
If you want to know more about us or see any photos of our travels, you can check out our website at trailofbeans.com.
We also have a Facebook page where you can follow us on our upcoming adventures and get updates along the way, which can be found by searching @the Bean Trail.
We'll be back next week. Same beans,
same pod.